All right, guys, this is Greg. We're back with the 27th episode of the Church Debater and Preacher Mike. Mike, it's our 6-month anniversary. Did you buy me a gift?
I did.
Oh, no.
Have a bang.
Man, I don't know. We might have to do one on addiction. It seems like you're lifting up those cans a lot. But I did think we would celebrate. I have in front of me usually a good measure on podcast or YouTube channels is how
Mhm.
many views you get in the very first week.
Okay.
So I have in front of me our top 5 most viewed episodes in their respective first week. So you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Number 5 was Our Angels Hovering Over Us. So that was just from a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Number 4 was How Do Christians Feel About Their Preacher and Elders? That was fourth.
I
Number
wouldn't have thought that
3,
had been there.
yeah, everybody wants to talk about the preacher, so I'm
I
not sure
guess.
why you surprised there. Number 3 is Every Moment of Our Life Worship. I knew that would be a popular
I did
topic.
too. Hmm.
Number 2, this was one of those where the title I think caught him. Did Adam ever talk to Noah? And the number 1 episode actually had 20% more views in its first week than any other, and it was actually last week's, the one
Well,
that started with No Fire in Hell. So,
yeah, yeah.
I'm trying to come up with catchier titles, and I, I think that's what we did.
I think you're doing a marvelous job.
Yeah, I know. I know sarcasm when I hear it. All right. I told you off mic or really earlier in the week that we've got enough viewer questions now that we've got the next 3 weeks covered.
Wow.
So, we'll go ahead and get into them. The main batch of questions today is going to come from a viewer named Greg. So, with that name, it's going to be a highly intelligent group of questions.
Let me get my seatbelt on for this one.
But first of all,
Yeah.
Brandon, who's asked a bunch of questions before, asked us several. We're going to hold them off until next week, except for the first one, because it's referring to last week's episode.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So let me ask that one first from Brandon. Follow up to the snake question. If they didn't find it unusual for the snake to be talking to them in the Garden of Eden, do you believe they could communicate with the animals at this time? If not, do you believe there were other times animals talked to them for them not to find the snake unusual?
Well, the way I've looked at it is, and part of this answer would depend upon how long in time do you believe, or do we believe, that they were in the garden prior to the temptation.
That's interesting.
And if they were there for years, then they would have had a chance to interact and experience with so many things and so much stuff that might have been abnormal. But if they have only been there a few days, they may not even have met a snake before. That might have been the first
Okay.
time. I mean, and far as she knew, that's what snakes do. So I'm not, it's more dependent upon, I think, how much time we think they were in the garden
Okay.
as a learning experience.
Okay. What I hoped you would say is that they probably talk to the animals all the time and actually let the animals talk them into what they want it to be called. Because if Adam named the animals, can't you just see the first cow coming up and says, "Hey, I think I look like a cow. I think you should call me a cow."
Now that would be a fascinating concept. That's a fascinating concept. And then
All
we're
right.
back to, that's the question that comes from a Greg.
Right. Yes. But real quickly, since I mentioned that,
Yeah,
just one type of cow when they first were created, right? And then
I
we
think so.
got all the variations after that.
Sure, sure.
Okay. All right. All right. All right.
Like with
So,
people, same with
yes,
people,
exactly.
same with
Same way.
dogs.
While we talked about this before, why it wasn't that big a deal to marry a cousin or whatever, or a
Right.
brother or sister way back then. That's all that was there. And it was before the body started for lack of a better phrase, getting sicker or developing those things inside.
Yeah, yeah, there was no genetic mutations.
Right, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that too. That's even a smarter way to say it. Rather than that stuff inside. I'm a math teacher. What do I know? All right. Here is our topic today, man. It is the timeliest topic we've ever had because we're going to talk about Halloween. All
Okay.
right. Here's our first question. And the writer wants to call this episode the Church Debater and Scary Mike because he said his brothers used to call you Scary Mike back in the day for some unknown reason. You got any comment? I still call you that. You got any comments on that?
When they were little, I mean really little, they well, they were, especially one is still rather reserved today, but back then they would hide behind their parents,
Oh
and
wow.
I would jump around behind to try to catch them, and that's when they started calling me Scary Mike.
Scary Mike. All right. All right, let's start with this one. He's got three main questions. Here's the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, the first thing was about the holiday of Halloween and how the
Mhm.
church should handle it.
Okay.
Many congregations do trunk or treat, and I know of one that uses it as a means to reach out to some children in the area surrounding the building.
Mhm.
Is our handling of Halloween different from the way we handle Easter or Christmas? Easter and Christmas are positive holidays that attempt to glorify God. And the first scriptural reference anyone will make when confronted with the question is Romans 14:5. One person considers one day more sacred than another. Another considers every day alike. Each of them should be fully convinced in their own mind. But could you consider Halloween to be more sacred than another and apply the same reasoning as we always go to when talking about Christmas to Halloween? That's the first part of the question. So, what do you think about that so far?
Well,
To
I
be
have to.
honest, after you answer some of these questions, it
Right.
made me think of questions of my own too.
Well,
So,
sure, sure. I'm same way.
yeah,
Whenever study it, I have more questions sometimes than I have answers. But
right.
the it does occur to me, it does seem to me that the celebrations around Easter and Christmas are at least founded in the concepts of things more positive than is Halloween.
Absolutely.
Number two, I don't celebrate Halloween, Christmas, or Easter as any kind of special religious significance day. I just don't. Now, I could. I don't think there's a problem with that, but I just don't. And the issue about what an individual or a family does is a different issue than what a church would do,
Right.
because individuals and families get to do what they think is the best for them and their families, and it affects only them. But a church has people that would be pro and con. And so, which if you force people into something that they're not comfortable with, that wouldn't be right as far as the
True.
church is concerned. So,
True.
to have a Christmas, quote, religious celebration in a church with people who don't think it is right to do so, I think would be a misstep. Now,
Yes.
individually, they can go have Christmas celebrations religiously or Easter. Halloween is sort of a confusing thing because I admit I don't like the glorification of demons and Satan. I just don't. I don't have a problem with fantasy and just having fun and dressing up and creating those kinds of things. When we have trunk or treats, I wish that nobody would have a child come up here in a demon costume or a Satan costume, because I don't want to give him that glory. But again, they're not doing it for any reason than just to have fun.
Right.
It would be somewhat similar to kids when growing up. You did it, I'm sure, and I did it. We would have guns we made out of sticks and we'd shoot each other.
Yeah.
Well, does that mean we're glorifying murder? I don't think so. It just means you're having fun.
Right.
And so I don't get all that torn up over those things.
Right. Me either.
So it's an individual thing more than a church thing.
Right. In fact, I would even go to say if the kid dresses up as a demon just for Halloween and
Yeah.
takes the costume off immediately after it's over, that says I'm putting that aside. That was fantasy. That was
True.
just for fun. It's over with.
I can't deny that.
All right. All right.
That's fair enough.
What you just said actually leads into his next comment.
Uh-huh.
With that being said, our congregation doing a trunk or treat has caused some people to be upset or concerned, and that I believe, without getting too close to gossip, that concern has made more folks mad. I think it might be, well, that's it. That I believe, without getting too close to gossip, that concern has made some folks mad about it. I mean, I've been to, when I was a teenager, especially, or maybe it was college, or maybe it was actually a young adult out in St. Louis, we would have parties, even, I shouldn't say church parties, groups of us from the church would get together and have a Halloween party.
Sure.
And we would dress up. Some of them might be a big chicken, but some of them might be from Terminator. So, you've got both of those sides. But again, it was all kind of a fantasy world. There's people that would tell you that the most violent cartoon in the history ever was Roadrunner. I mean, that was,
I know.
Although those, they never died. So I don't know what that says.
Yeah, but Wally B got beat up, man. He got beat up.
What do you think about those that think that we should not every costume should be totally positive? I think I've even run into some people that would have problems with Casper the Friendly Ghost costumes, even though, I know how we feel about Ghost, but I'm not sure if we're 100% sure that, about that concept. So what do you have to say about that? And then he's got one more question.
I think that is another area. Interestingly enough, it fits what I'm talking about all day today on the concept of submission.
Right. The dirty word. The dirty word. See, I was listening.
The dirty word. That's exactly right. And I think that the shepherds set the tone for that church. And if a church does this under them and another church doesn't do it under their shepherds, that shows there's autonomy there. Now, at the same time, it is not possible ever to do anything that there won't be somebody who objects to it.
I agree.
So if you
object to that. No, wait, I agree. I agree.
No, I'm right. No, I object. If you always cater to every single objection, you will never do anything. So I think that in a way, and that's why God created it the way he did, our shepherds manage it in a way that makes it as general as it can be, just to have a good time for the kids.
And I would even throw in the word evangelistic in there, because you can invite others to come.
I would too. And we have. And so I understand. And I think it's perfectly fine for people to object. I have no problem with that at all. And the best way to handle that is to object, make your statement known, even tell those in charge of the elders. Don't go running to a person just put in place of it. Just talk to the elders about it. And then don't show up. Don't come. Yep. But it ain't going to affect a person. It's different when it's an event that people come to, not everybody. But if it's an assembly on a Sunday morning when everybody usually comes and you do something there that affects people, that's totally different.
Yes. All right. His last question, and you've touched on most of it, really. Next question is about ghost spirits and talking to the dead, all of that kind of stuff. He said the Bible forbids sorcery and divination. And personally, I've always thought that it would never be successful in the first place, and that maybe the prohibition of this stuff has deeper meaning. The focus of my question is really 1 Samuel 28. Saul contacts the witch of Endor to attempt to speak to Samuel. What happened here? Was she successful in summoning Samuel, or did something else happen?
I think she was. In fact, I think the text even indicates that she surprised herself. I think she was accustomed to the trickery and the deception, possibly even of herself,
Okay.
so that she actually thought she was doing something when she really wasn't. So, but the appearance of how, when that happened, it seemed to shock her and it seemed to really throw her off. So it seemed to be real when she really hadn't experienced anything real before. Now, admittedly, you're talking about a time when God did a whole bunch of stuff that's not happening right now.
Right, right.
And so to say that that time compares to this time would be inaccurate, because I don't have the ability to go prostrate my body on top of a child and raise him from the dead like
Right.
Elisha did. But so I think that you have to keep that into consideration. But I do believe that he actually had her talk to Samuel. I don't have
Okay.
any doubt about it.
Okay.
And that wouldn't be, when Jesus told the story about the rich man and Lazarus, he talked about them talking over in the Hadean realm. So
Right.
people over there have communication. I don't know how much, but there's something over there, some kind of knowledge over there.
Right.
Um, the Ecclesiastes, I think, is where we really learn. It says the dead do not know anything under the sun. And so I don't think the dead have any time knowledge. In other words, they don't know what's happening right now. They have memories of what happened, but I don't think they know what's happening right now. So to talk to them in the present, I don't think is possible.
I don't know if you ever watched the TV series Lost. Did you watch that
No, never
series?
did. Mm-mm.
It's this is a spoiler, guys, for about 30 seconds. So if you're in the middle of it, turn the volume down for about 30 seconds. Here's what I
Okay.
was going to say. The last episode actually had them all reuniting, even though they died at separate at different times.
Ah,
And they said, they didn't ever say heaven, but they did talk about the concept of there's no time here.
hmm.
So we can get together just like we've been friends all our life. So it was interesting. Now,
That is,
witches. All right. Now, you know me. Now that we've talked about Halloween, I'm going to try to see if I can turn this as controversial as possible before we get out of here.
as
First of
in the
all,
church,
though, huh?
as in church debater.
What happened back in Winston Salem? What I don't even remember when that was. Was that the 1800s? I can't remember.
Um, 1700s, I think.
1700s. What happened back then?
Here's my opinion on those things. The the game. What is the game with the little piece that you put your fingers on and it moves
Oh,
around?
Ouija board. Ouija board.
Ouija board. It is my opinion that God, as the questioner said, does not want us dabbling in those kinds of things. He didn't in Bible times. I also know that in Bible times, the devil was permitted to take over people's lives,
Right.
and they couldn't stop it. But I believe that that is now no longer right. I don't think the devil has that power. However, having said that, I do think that if I more and more push myself into that area, then I open myself up more and more to allow Satan to influence and control me. Not in a way that I can never come back, but in a way that opens me up to things that God wants me not to experience. And so I just don't mess with that kind of thing. I know when I was in St. Louis, like you were, they had a real problem while we were there with an uptick in young people getting involved in the Church of Satan.
Oh my goodness. I've never
Yeah.
heard that before.
Oh, yeah. And I even went to, there was a police officer who was very schooled in all of this. And I went to his thing for area wide preachers and youth ministers, and it was unbelievable
Wow.
what was happening. And so those people just, when you go to worshiping and wanting that to be a part, the truth is we become what we worship. We become what we esteem. And therefore, if that's all you're after, you're after the profligate living, the licentiousness that comes with worshiping the devil, you will become that kind of person. If you're a God worshiping person, you'll become more and more like God. And that's just a fact. So why dabble in those things and expose yourself to them in ways that are not good for us?
Right, right. You know, you made me think. One of the classes I'm teaching right now at school is computer applications, and I'm
Mhm.
taking them through the history of computers and, for that matter, video games, because video games kind of push the computer industry to advance even faster than maybe it wanted to. But my
Oh,
point was the video game industry. If you look back at the most popular games early, and I say early in that life, like the 80s, you could see it go through how Mario and all those games were popular in the beginning. And then it switched over to Mortal Kombat and Grand Theft Auto and games like that that were much more violent. So I thought that was, and I mentioned to them, can you see that progression there? And I said, there's a lot of people that have trouble with that because you never know when a game like that could plant a seed in a
sure,
maybe an unstable mind, and then
sure.
that's when things go wrong. And probably everybody in my room has no problem with it, and they know it's just all fantasy. But let me first of all, let me mention three. I wish I had some props. I'm going to mention three Halloween costumes. You tell me if you're okay with them. Okay.
Okay. All right.
The one where I can pull the thing over my head and I've got an arrow stuck through my head. You like that one?
Yeah, that's a comedy routine. I don't, that doesn't bother me a bit.
Steve Martin. Steve
Steve
Martin.
Martin, that's right.
All right. What if I buy the kits and put those fake scars all over my face and maybe a drop of blood coming down? How
Yeah.
you like that one?
Well, people do it. I would never do it, but okay. I'm not concerned about it.
All right. What about a good old Michael Myers mask? I actually own one, a
Do you?
Michael Myers mask, which, by the way, at the time was the most successful Halloween themed movie in history. That was back in the 70s. And the producer, John Carpenter, is actually from Kentucky.
Hmm.
So
You want a prop?
interesting. But what
Do you
about
want a prop?
just a Michael Myers mask?
Well, let's do this. Let me
All
get
right.
you a prop. Can I pull away and get you a prop?
Yes,
All right.
absolutely. I'll
All right.
sing a song while you're gone.
Yeah, there you go. How about we do this one? Let's just use this one.
Oh, nice, nice.
Now,
That's good.
you know this guy.
I know I do. I'll let you finish the story though, because I can't remember anything. Remember?
Well, this is one of our fellows here, Randy Brockwell, and he scared
Yes.
the jeebers out of me late one night or early one
Oh, yes. I
many
remember.
years ago wearing that. So, is it something that is a disturbing thing spiritually? Nah, not really. It might disturb people physically, but the only time that would bother me is if we began glorifying the
Good.
murder and the corruptness
Good.
and really saying, in fact, it could be that doing some of this in the way that it's done actually takes away and demeans it, making fun of it rather than glorifying it.
Right, right. That's a good point. That's a really good point. What about some of the shows that are popular? The guy that created The Walking Dead
Mhm.
is from Cynthiana, Kentucky.
Wow.
Um, what about shows like that, or even shows that are not that type of zombie type motif, but just movies in general? I mentioned the Terminator before. Uh, Violent movies. Where do we draw the line? What is okay to go to and what is not?
Well, a lot of the reason that violent movies are what they are is because of special effects and people enjoy that kind of a
True.
thing.
And
And they're
that's
really,
not really happening. I mean, it's
no,
not a real life thing. Right.
right.
Good
And they're
point.
really fascinated by it. But if you go way back in the 30s and 40s, they had Westerns where they shot people all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not about that. It's about the detail of the experience, of the intensity, how you really get into it. I I think that movies like that will never. I don't think there's any way to believe that you take a solid person and they would become unstable by watching all that.
True, true.
However, you could take person who is unstable and with enough dosage of that, maybe influence them off of their instability worse. I
No
mean, it's
doubt.
possible,
No doubt.
but I'm not concerned about whether those things increase a violent mentality among the people. I don't know. I just don't.
I agree.
Now, I don't know what the studies say, but that's just what I feel.
Well, the studies usually don't happen
Right.
until somebody snaps.
That's right.
And then they write a study about it. Here's why they snapped. It's the same reason you don't put up a stoplight until somebody has a terrible accident there, and then you put up a stoplight. That's how I feel about that.
Now, they used to
And
do that with music all the time, blaming lyrics in music for
oh
certain.
yes, I don't know if you remember this. I actually did a devotional one time at church about the song Louie Louie, because a lot of people, you couldn't hardly understand it. And a lot of people thought that it had very suggestive and terrible sexual lyrics. That wasn't that way at all. It was written 10 years before that. And it was about a guy that missed a boat ride. His lady in her boat was supposed to pick him up from a deserted island, and they missed him. And that's what that song was about. But you just start sticking those thoughts in people's minds. And all of a sudden, not only do they believe it, they insist that it's true. So I just think it's so easy to get carried away with things like that
Well,
if we let it. Go ahead.
it's easy to think of Louie Louie that way because Animal House popularized it.
That's true. Good point. Good point. Good point. Right. All right, man. That is it. We get to kick off our second half of our, start our second 6 months with, I know what's coming up the next 2 weeks. So you're going to have your hands full is all I'm saying. So
Well, we emptied them so well today, I can't imagine.
I tell you what, I'll give you the two names of the people that sent in the questions, and that will get your mindset. The first one is Brandon. You know who that is.
Yeah.
The second one is Lena, and you know who
Uh,
that is. So
that's going to be fun. That's going to be interesting.
so we got some good questions coming. So
There's no
close
doubt
this
about
out,
that.
my man. Close this out.
Well, I'm glad that we're doing this, and by the way, I'm sorry I didn't get you a 6-month anniversary thing. I'll try to remember it on the 1 year.
You could have just got 2 straws for your drink if it wasn't the COVID situation,
Good
and
point.
that would have
Good
been
point.
perfectly
Good
okay.
point. Good point. But as we think about this, and it seems like every time we do this, I'm trying to hit the theme of the day. Here's our point. Greg and I both, we want to be submissive to what God's will is. That's what we're looking
Absolutely.
for.
Absolutely. In
And
all
so
things.
whatever our teaching is either going to be supported by what God said or you reject it. And so we want you to be submissive to what God actually teaches. And if we help in that, then that's well and good.
Perfect way to close it out. All right, guys, that's it for this week's episode. We will see you next week on the Church Debater and Preacher Mike.